Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first NEAR Contract Standards Community Working Group meeting. My name is Ori Applebaum, and I'm a technical program manager from Pagoda, and I'm very excited to kick off this group and discuss contract standards today. So to go over the agenda, first, I will give a quick update on the NEP process and working groups. Next, we'll do some brief introductions as we have a few panelists joining us today. Then we will get into the main discussion, non-transferable NFT standard. And lastly, we will open it up to Q&A. So if at any time you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A button on the screen, and we'll answer them if they're relevant or wait until the end. Let's start with a little bit of background. So Pagoda currently owns a lot of the software development for the entire NEAR ecosystem. And we recognize that in order to make meaningful progress and make decisions in a more decentralized way, we need to make it easier for the community to get involved. So the first step is that we've introduced a more formalized NEP process, NEAR enhancement proposals, earlier this year, as a way for anyone in the community to submit proposals, provide rationale, and build consensus. And as we've been getting more NEP submissions, we realized that we need a way to move them forward, to review them, make decisions, and determine the next step, so that they're not just sitting indefinitely. So that's where the working groups comes in. The working groups really is a way to help operationalize the review of those NEPs. And in the short term, Pagoda has selected a few leading subject matter experts to help bootstrap the first two working groups, contract standards and protocol. And putting these groups into practice will require a gradual approach and flexibility as we learn what works and what doesn't. But in the long term, as we iterate, we plan to introduce more groups to handle various ecosystem needs and empower the community to run them. Now, speaking of iteration, we are here today to kick off the first contract standards working group and actually start bootstrapping this process. So before we talk about the actual steps, it is important to highlight the various roles that are involved in this process. So there are four key ones. First, the author. This is the person who writes the proposal and presents it to the working group. Second is the moderator, the person who facilitates the process and helps validate that the proposal meets the guidelines and progresses forward. The reviewer, the subject matter expert, the person who reviews the technical feasibility. And then the approver. Those are the working group members who make the actual decision. And all of that may sound confusing. So here's a diagram to illustrate the entire process. And basically, we have three main stages: draft, review, and voting, and two outcomes: approved and rejected. And all the roles mentioned before help move the NEP through these stages and towards the outcome. The thing that I wanted to highlight is that today we're trying to execute this process and look at a proposal that has been in the review stage. And the goal is to have the author present it to the working group and ideally go into a voting decision. And today we're kind of demonstrating and talking about the process and working through it. But in the future, a lot of these activities will also happen very actively in the NEP directly. So before we jump in, let's do some brief introductions. So I would like to start with the contract standards working group members and would like to introduce Marcelo. Marcelo, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. Marcelo Fornet from Cuba. I am a software engineer at Aurora, currently working at leading the protocol team, and have been involved in the NEAR ecosystem for a long time. Looking forward to see the whole NEP movement moving forward, and hope I can help in this.
Thanks. Evgeny, do you want to go next?
Yes, I'm Evgeny Kapun. I'm working as a software engineer at Pagoda. I'm working on security of the NEAR ecosystem, also on the protocol, and focused on cryptography.
Awesome, and I'll join the crew. My name is Vlad Frolov. I'm engineer manager at Pagoda, and I joined the team quite early on, and we worked on very different projects in the ecosystem, bootstrapped a lot of things, and I'm excited to see how NEP processes will benefit the whole community as a whole. Yeah. Thanks, Ori.
Awesome. Thanks, Vlad. All right, next we will introduce the moderators in the process, and I will hand it over to Max.
Hey everyone, I'm Max. So I joined NEAR as actually the first employee. I was here from the very beginning. And yeah, me and Ori were launching this work group project. And so I'm here to facilitate it as much as possible.
Yes, and I've already introduced myself, but I guess I'd like to also add that I am playing a moderator role in this process and very excited to do so. I just joined Pagoda recently, and yeah, very excited to just kick off this NEP process. So cool. And then last but not least, I would like to introduce the NEP author for the NEP that we're reviewing. So Jasper.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Jasper Tim. I'm a software developer working for KYC DAO, mostly on smart contracts. We would use something like this non-transferable NFT standard that we've proposed in our KYC platform, basically. So that's why we're hoping to get it standardized. So looking forward to working with the rest of the working group.
Great. Well, super excited to have you all here. And I think now it's a perfect segue after Jasper just spoke to actually jump directly into the major discussion, which is the non-transferable NFT standard discussion. The link for that is listed here, and we'll also, again, post it after the meeting. But yeah, let's just jump right into this NEP. And I'd like to hand it over back to Jasper to provide a high level of this NEP and why he believes it is important. So Jasper, take it away.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah, I'll try and make it super short because I'm going to be under the assumption that like a lot of you have looked through this standard proposal already and are familiar with it. So it's really just like a high level walkthrough then. Yeah, but in summary, I think there's a need for something like an NFT that is not transferable. It's gone by a lot of names on the various chains, soul-bound tokens and account-bound tokens, just essentially something that looks like an NFT that is intended for one wallet and not to be transferred out of it. That's what this standard is supposed to be for. Yeah, essentially we're just trying to create the standard so that there's sort of like compatibility with the existing tooling that's around, basing it off the NEP 171 standards, essentially, and trying to make things like metadata calls and events that would be logged for all of the standard events similar, or if not exactly the same as the existing sort of NFT standard in NEP 171, just so that it makes things like compatibility with tools, like displaying in wallets as simple as possible for those tools, so that it kind of just carries on and we get these things by default as much as possible. Yeah, we're trying to create this standard so that it means tools get a hint as to, yeah, essentially how to handle these cases, that they know that there has been a standard created for these, and that the intention with any sort of contract that's created with this standard is that they're not to be transferred, and that there won't be any transfer / approval functionality in this contract, and so that the wallets know this, and hopefully in the future, if this gets adopted, then that the wallets can, you know, for example, display that they're not to be transferred. But yeah, it's essentially what we're aiming for. Then I hope that covers it as a summary. And yeah, there's been plenty of discussions in the thread already. I assume we're going to get to that now.
Perfect. Thank you, Jasper. Yeah, so next, Vlad will summarize some of the benefits and concerns that we saw in the comments and the public comments on the thread. So I will hand it over to you, Vlad.
Yeah, thanks, Ori. Yeah, I will serve as the sort of moderator for the working group right now. So I collected all the benefits and the concerns that they found in the NEP during all the discussions, including the old ones. So I just want to make sure that we are like aware of the whole context, not only part of it. So please bear with me. I'll start with the benefits. And the first benefit I saw was that it's a dedicated standard for a specific real use cases, like badges, ticketing, and certificates. It follows the second is that it follows the NFT standard methods, like defined in NEP 171. I will unpack it later on. So I feel like it's bless and curse here. And the third one is that standard itself is quite slim, and it could even be viewed as the base of the original NEP 171, as it was suggested in the comments. I don't want to put any color on the facts here, so I present them as is, and I'd like to move forward to the next slide where I collected all the concerns, and the very first one is that what was raised is that it seems like this SNAP does not solve non-transferability property, and it was stated in the NEP itself, so it's not a surprise to anybody. You can transfer the whole, like all the tokens the account holds by selling the whole account. And the second very tied together to it is that what people brought in the comments, actually many of them, is that non-transferability is a property itself is concerning, and there are a lot of use cases where people still want to transfer their tickets, certificates, and other stuff, just for different reasons. They are not immediately, like it's not specifically trading, they just want to manage their assets. So this is the outstanding. These two are outstanding, well, like connected concerns there. And the comment that was brought in the community was trying to argue that the NFT itself as a standard that should not define the transferability, while the NEP 171 actually did it. But the state is the current state of the ecosystem that we already have one NEP 171. So we need to unblock ourselves starting from here. Or can we move to the next page? Awesome, yeah. So the third concern I found was that the ecosystem can be, by the ecosystem I mean all the tooling and the apps that were implemented using NEP, the assumptions that NEP 171 will be not the only, but well, the only standard interface. And currently, with this current proposal, it could be a collision with the naming of the methods, while the JSON events are different. The method names, I want to just remind everybody that JSON, the interface method names are used the same as in NEP 171, meaning that like it has NFT underscore token, and and potentially the metadata was advised in this NEP to be used exactly the same as in NEP 171, which makes it very hard to tell them apart from NEP 171. So if you have two contracts deployed following these two different technically two different standards, it would be very hard by the tooling to tell them apart. And this brings us closer to this fourth point, first concern about discoverability issue, which was also raised a few times, that while it's not solved for NFT standard itself, for NEP 171, it would be very beneficial, and actually more comments, more people brought the idea of necessity to have a way to discover availability of mint, burn methods, and the resolution there that was suggested in the comments was to define how we discover NFT interfaces, which methods are available, and that way it would be more generic version of this NFT standard. And the comment I chose here was from Jasper, that indeed, like it was one among many replies there, that it would be indeed quite an interesting direction to explore. Let's move on. The last two concerns I found were actually resolved or like irrelevant, and the fifth was about the fact that we could actually suffer from spam of NFT that cannot be burned because, well, burn interface is not defined, and you cannot you cannot transfer it. But it seems like it's a general issue for the whole NFT ecosystem in general, and it should be solved outside of these two NEPs. So I put it like irrelevant here. And the last one, which was actually resolved, initially there was a burn method implemented or defined as a standard. And the general consensus was that this standard should not strictly define the burn method because there are different use cases. And currently it's sort of resolved. So just to sum it up, to view all the whole list of unresolved items, we can see them all on the list on the screen. And basically there are quite some of them. Ori, can you help me to navigate to like to the next stages here after we summed it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Vlad, by the way, for looking at all the comments, you know, from everyone in the public thread and aggregating them. So basically, what we're trying to do in this meeting is we want to get into the voting stage, right? We want to be able to decide if we want to approve this NEP or not, basically. And so I think based on these concerns that you have summarized, Vlad, I would like to open it up to the rest of the working group members and basically ask sort of what your thoughts are in terms of how you're leaning, as well as the reasoning for it. So does anyone want to go first?
Yes, I can go ahead.
Perfect.
So as I was writing before in the NEP discussion, there is actually nothing preventing developers from having such NFT with the non-transferability property. That's something that we cannot enforce at this level. And there are legit use cases of this standard. So it's in the best of our interest to have such a standard available for the community to be used. And so actually tools can support it if they choose to. Given said that, I do think that the main problem that this NEP is kind of supposed to solve is the discoverability, like help both on-chain and off-chain tools, that this is actually a non-transferable NFT, so they can react accordingly to this. So I think having such a standard without discoverability, it's kind of trying to get ourselves ahead of the actual. So in general, my opinion would be according to the NEP guidelines, what would be the case. But like, I wouldn't say I reject the standard. I would just prefer to see this NEP included after the discoverable, the interface discover standard process. So maybe that means that in the short term I lean towards rejecting, but I do think that having this is better than not.
Okay, thank you, Marcelo. Evgeny, do you want to go next?
No, can
Okay.
Vlad go?
Sure.
Sure. So, well, just to bring some context about my experience with NFT in general, like in the community, is I've been working on the tooling side quite extensively, meaning like off-chain and on-chain as well. And what I discovered, there are indeed a lot of problems with discoverability, and it's not solved for NEP 171. But at the same time, I see that with the proposed solution of having a NEP that would just help people to identify whether transfer, mint, or and burn methods are available, would be even more beneficial than having just a non-transferable NFT standard as it currently states. With that in mind, I'm leaning towards rejecting this standard as of it is today, and strongly support all this future effort in writing this extended NFT interface detection and NEP going forward. Yeah, Ori, I guess overall, given that we are in the same, like we have the currently we have Evgeny and Marcelo on the board, and well, Evgeny, do you want to participate in the voting today, or do you prefer to?
Yes, I would agree then with the other approvers that probably instead of having just two types of NFTs in terms of the functionality, it's better to have some more generic interface that would allow more flexibility in terms of what functions are present or not.
Okay, well, it sounds like we are at consensus that we can, well, officially move on to this voting process. So Ori, you can take a stage and just help us to make it more formal here.
Cool. Yeah. So as part of the decision-making step of this NEP process, we're looking for 2/3 consensus, on either like we have 2/3 majority to approve or to reject. It sounds like in this case, there's more of a majority, even beyond that. But I want to just ask just to make sure that we have it on the call. So it seems like there's a consensus leaning towards rejecting the current NEP as it is written. If I stated that correctly, please thumbs up. If you disagree with that, thumbs down. So yeah, working group members.
I don't have a emoji here, so I'm using old school.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So it seems like we have reached a consensus then towards rejecting the approval, the proposal at this time, and obviously we'd want to leave specific comments in the NEP itself, as we discussed on what it would take, for a future proposal to look like. So yeah, we will summarize the discussion on the NEP itself and ask the working members to formalize their vote there after the meeting. So, okay, great. So I think now it's time for Q&A, and I see actually there's quite a bit of chatter and questions, so we can go, we can go through them. So Ben, Kurik brought up a comment. I kind of disagree with the spam NFTs being irrelevant with the standard. This is a much bigger issue than it is for regular NFTs. As with regular NFTs, you can simply transfer them away.
Well,
Okay.
just to briefly mention it, why? Well, because it was my decision to mark it as irrelevant. I feel that you wouldn't battle with the spending your near, just transferring something again, like away, and usually you would find some way to hide them, and that's much easier way to deal with those. So I feel that could be a separate standard that would basically have some blacklist or whitelist of contracts that will be part of wallet standards going forward. Yeah, Evgeny?
I want to say why this has nothing really to do with spam, like this NEP. The problem is that someone can make a token that implements the regular NFT standard, but which is not actually transferable, like they have a transfer function that always panics, for example. And so you can't really fix this with a standard because spammers, their adversaries, they can not follow standards.
Yep. And they even can set very high, gas expectations for that function. They will burn everything you
just panic.
Or just panic, yeah.
Also from Ben is, I'm also confused about the approval rejection process we're doing right now. If there are concerns that are unresolved, shouldn't we resolve the concerns and vote on the proposed resolutions first until most things are resolved and then approve the NEP itself? That's a great question.
Well, I do agree with Ben. I think this is less of a problem right now, given it was rejected. But in general, I do think that if there are concerns before it's getting approved, we need to have a potential avenue of solution for each of these concerns.
I guess, Ori, the best way to describe it with the diagram we had in the previous slides. And ideally, so today, as Ori said, it's our first meeting and we choose to force things a bit. But going forward, we'll try to make sure that all the decisions are recorded in the NEP itself, and the meeting will be mostly used for formal final discussion if there is some tie or just out of order work group meeting where we would have we would ahead of time agree that we need to have a sync call with the community, with the work group, and discuss matters. So this today call is a bit unusual one.
I also want to add for everyone that one of our core goals of this work group meeting is to make sure that discussions that are started are actually ended, and they are not never ending discussions. It's not in anyone's interest to have a discussion on the proposal that just doesn't end. And so we're open for any suggestions how it can be achieved in general. So if you're on this call or you see it later as a recording, please suggest to us how you recommend to resolve this issue. The current way we're resolving it is that we put a firm deadline for any kind of proposal. We say by the end of 2 months, it should be either approved or it should be rejected. We can reject things based on, right, there are concerns are still being brought up, they're still unresolved. Maybe this is too raw, or maybe this is an indication of some kind of inherent flaw in the proposal itself. So that's our way of addressing it, is that if outstanding concerns aren't resolved after 2 months, it can be an indicator of maybe deeper underlying issue. But as I said, we are also open to anyone here to propose alternative solutions to it.
So there's another comment. Would this mean extending NEP 171 with an interface to check if the token is transferable or not?
Yes, sort of. So we actually discussed it on NEP briefly, though, that there is a huge interest in knowing whether burn interface is available, whether mint interface, what is the name of the mint function. So it could be as slim as just a Boolean flag, but I hope to see if we can make it more generic and cover mint and burn methods as well somehow.
I was actually even thinking to take it further if possible. I also don't want to just gatekeep this particular standard, but on Ethereum there is an interface, this total standard that allows contracts to tell which interfaces they implement. So it's possible for a contract to implement several interfaces at the same time that are not related to each other. So maybe we can also have something like this in here, and I think that's exactly what we could use in this case.
Okay. And I saw that Cameron just asked a question, and it looks like Max just responded to it. Max, did you want to speak to this? The question is there a path to editing the proposal for it to be approved at a later date?
Yeah, basically it's continuation of what I was saying is that if we reject it, then it can be either indication of, well, either concerns have been generated and not been answered, which might be an indicator of inherent issues. So maybe start again, rethink it from the scratch, or maybe just also an indicator of a lack of the interest from the community, right? If someone proposed an idea, but it was not developed by anyone, even if it was a good idea, maybe there is just not enough demand and no one took it over as a torchbearer and haven't polished it to the end. So just to keep things going, start another pull request. It's really up to you whether you like literally copy the code and edit it, or like copy the original pull request and edit it to address the issues, or you start entirely from the scratch. Yeah, but like the formal part here is at the start a new pull request.
Cool. Okay, so then another question from Cameron is, what is the next NEP that is going to be reviewed? How is this decision made? Yeah, that's a really great question. And that is something that we're actively still figuring out in the process. We have a list of NEPs and we're trying to figure out how it makes sense. And so I think we're actively exploring that that way and would love ideas, but I assume also just kind of looking at where there is activity is probably a good place to start, kind of seeing like where there seem to be a lot of interest and engagement. Again, as I think a few have mentioned earlier, we really want to start having more of this dialogue in the NEPs themselves. And once we have enough of a backlog of NEPs and we need like a very clear, here's how we prioritize that, we will make sure to also specify that approach. We have another work group that we picked another NEP to try this experiment with, and we will follow a similar sort of approach and then kind of gather all the feedback and insights and continue to iterate from there. All right. Does anyone have any other questions?
I do. A question for Jasper. Given it's your main interest to have this standard, are you or your team available to work on a following up NEP that help address current concerns for which this one was rejected?
Sorry, Marcelo, just to check that question, that was are we planning on working on a new NEP for the same standard that like addresses the concerns? Is that what the question was?
Yeah, I think in this case it will be about addressing the problems of interface discoverability. And
Right.
just wondering if you're interested in working on that. And
yeah, maybe just if I could quickly slip in, I feel like just in the discussion, I guess then it feels like I got the impression that there was a way forward with this existing NEP, and like I understand this is kind of a working progress of how it works, but I guess I don't know, somehow practically I guess it feels like some sort of like on hold status or something. Like I understand you guys want to get through these NEPs as quick as possible, but just yeah, it feels like there is a way forward, I guess then. But yeah, I'll follow the standards, and given that, I think it makes sense that like once this interface detection is here, that we would essentially, include that in a new NEP for the same thing. So to answer your question, I think we'd be happy to consider a NEP that would include that. I guess it just feels like we had it and we could have included it. But if it's a new NEP, it's a new NEP. It's fine.
Yeah, I would recommend to actually write first, maybe in the near forum, to start a discussion there. Such that we can actually get to some consensus, and then NEP become more of a formality than anything else, of details, technical details. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be handy to get some consensus going in the forum first, I guess, then as to what would be required, so that when we submit the NEP the next time, that like we know that there'll be some backing from the approvers, that those concerns won't come up again. So yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention is that I personally hate to like reject NEPs, because I know how hard it is to make those. Been there, done that, and been rejected a couple of times for different reasons. Totally not fun, but overall, I feel like we are guardians of the like ecosystem health here, and this like especially breaking other tools. I know how like I've been on the other side as well, where implementing tools, you need to then create a lot of custom code to just avoid detecting the thing that you don't want to take into account. So definitely it would be like we will need to think through of some faster way to get semi-consensus, as you mentioned, so we don't spend so much time talking through it. I personally wanted to just make some progress, even if it's harsh and feels and like that we are so strict and decided to reject for sake of rejection. It wasn't the case. It was a very hard decision, as I mentioned in all my comments. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jasper, in that in that link that's actually on this screen, there is a whole part about like, the front end of the process and like, kind of engaging in the governance form. But I will go and actually try to make it really explicit, sort of the idea that you're mentioning, because I think it's really good. Oh, and I see that Max just answered Cameron's question about the next NEP that we should review. Max, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. This is the beginning of the process for nomination. So someone needs to speak up and say, hey, what about this NEP? So thank you, Cameron, for bringing it up. As we said, in the future, we're going to have an actual pipeline for this. But right now, this is exactly how we have this NEP surfaced. We're going to look how it stacks against other NEPs. So we need to look and see whether anything is on fire right now, and we need to discuss something urgently there. If not, then this is a really good nomination to discuss multiple fungible token standard next. Regarding your next question of which of the pull requests / NEPs should be discussed, if you feel very passionate about this NEP, then please help us by deduping them, either suggest a close one, merge them together, whichever. That will certainly make our life easier to focus on one NEP instead of two.
So Ryan just posted one. Depending on your schedule for how frequent these meetings are, another one or more than one that will come soon will be from Jacob L, relating to some important partnerships. Okay, please reach out. I don't know what this really means, but yeah, definitely reach out if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas. Okay.
One question of my own, Ori. Is it supposed that every NEP should go through this process of approval in a meeting? Every NEP?
Yep.
Okay.
So there will be different work groups, as already presented in the very beginning, that we will also have protocol working group, which will be using the same NEP process, same repo, but there will be a different people in charge of reviewing those and there even could be a stricter process there, and we believe that protocol is super important to make sure that those features are actually implementable and will land eventually. So, and contract standards are of a different nature, and it's more like finding how the tooling should fit into the table. So expect all those working groups focusing on different aspects, being more or less strict about their requirements. But overall, well, like I work with Ori closely these days, and I see a lot of work put there to make sure everybody on the same page, and the community can have certain expectations, which contributes to transparency at the end of the day. And yeah. Or do you want to speak there?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, we're just going to continue to try to iterate on this, and would love ideas, concerns, participation, because it's going to be a collective effort, right, to figure this out. And really the goal is to create more movement, you know, on these NEPs that a lot of them have just been sort of sitting in an idle state, and we really want to give them the attention that they deserve, because everyone has, you know, great ideas, and we want to align and help evolve the ecosystem. So yeah, cool. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending today, especially, you know, Jasper, the author. Thank you for taking the time to submit the NEP and engage in this process that we're figuring out, you know, as we go. And also thank you to the working group members, the panelists who joined today and who have been involved in the actual forums and in here. And then, of course, to the community and everyone else who has been engaging. That's super awesome, and we hope to see that continue. Just in terms of next steps, so we will be posting this meeting recording and summary and GitHub. We also have a website that we put together for the working groups that will list the upcoming meetings that are coming up, and as well as links to previous recordings. So we will have the protocol working group meeting most likely happen in September. We're actively discussing, you know, NEP right now in the forums, and hope to figure out the best one to have this process tested with. But yeah, other than that, I think this concludes our first working group session. So thank you everyone so much, and hope you have a good rest of your day or evening wherever you are. So take care.